says that he's 136 pounds in weight and he's 5 foot 9 inches tall, which gives a BMI of 20.1, which is normal. So although he appears slightly thin, he is within the acceptable range. You might expect some firming up of the arteries of a man aged 50, but Michael Jackson had no evidence of this. And his heart was in good condition too. So for a man of his age, he was in good shape.
Yet Jackson was clearly in trouble at the rehearsals. He seemed short of breath, stiff and unable to perform the routines he was famous for. In the autopsy, Richard Shepard has found a reason for Jackson's lackluster performance.
Several x-rays were taken of Michael Jackson. They showed he had osteoarthritis in some of his fingers and his spine.
The vertebrae in the spine are cushioned by areas of cartilage. In osteoarthritis, the cartilage degenerates and the bones are left unprotected. This places pressure on the joints, and in extreme circumstances, the bones can grind together.
This is a condition that would cause him some pain and stiffness and might limit his movements.
Osteoarthritis could explain why he was struggling with movement. But it couldn't explain why he was struggling to breathe.
Most of his organs are in good condition for his age. The exception is his lungs, and they were like a battlefield. The lining of the airways showed a lot of damage, and both lungs showed widespread inflammation and quite extensive scarring. For Michael Jackson, it would have made it harder for him to exert himself, and he would have fatigued more easily. The next question I would want to ask is, what's caused all this damage?
A possible explanation is written all over Jackson's face. In his mid-20s, he developed a symmetrical red rash around his cheeks. A classic symptom of another rare skin disease, discoid lupus, which causes hair to fall out anywhere on the body and can damage the lips.
We can see from the autopsy that Jackson had dark tattoos on his eyebrows, and there were tattoos on the eyelids like eyeliner, and he'd also got tattoos in pink around his lips.
Lupus would also explain Jackson's habit of using umbrellas. The disease leaves skin sensitive to sunlight. And it doesn't only affect the skin, it can wreak havoc across the whole body.
Lupus is an autoimmune disease, and these diseases occur when the body attacks parts of itself.
White blood cells usually attack foreign invaders in the body. But in lupus, these cells strike at the body itself, including the lungs, leaving them heavily damaged.
They're chronic diseases with episodes of remission and recurrence. And their recurrence can be triggered by a number of things: stress, exertion, and lack of sleep.
But is there an alternative explanation for Jackson's lung damage? For 25 years, an increasingly unstable and drug-dependent Jackson had been visiting the clinic of dermatologist Dr. Arnold Klein. According to those who worked there, these visits have become less and less about his skin.
He would be in the office a couple times a week, have very minor procedures done. When he got to the office, I would take him in the back door and put him in the procedure room, and at that point I'd go get Dr. Klein's nurse Ellen and say, Michael's here and he wants a shot.
On every visit, he'd receive at least one injection. The syringe was full of Demerol, a powerful medical version of heroin.
Usually the effects were pretty quick. He might pass out, he might be just tired, he might be loopy.
And Jackson didn't always come to see Dr. Klein alone.
If he was with the kids, that would be a little bit of a distraction for him. The kids would usually sit in Dr. Klein's office. They'd be running and screaming and joking, and it would be a lot of fun until Michael got really out of it.
As the tour approached, Jackson's requests for these injections became more and more frequent.
He would come in and he would demand to see Dr. Klein quickly. He would want his shot of Demerol as quickly as possible. And you could tell that there was something going on.
By taking the drug, Jackson risked severe lung damage, addiction, and even death. So could Demerol be implicated in Jackson's sudden passing?
The autopsy shows there are no significant injuries on the body, and there's no evidence of any significant disease except in the lungs. And so we turn to the next stage. We look for the telltale chemical clues in the body, the toxicology report.
Jackson had well-publicized problems with prescription drugs. He'd been in rehab several times and had admitted to addictions to painkillers. In 2009, he was also having frequent injections of Demerol, a pharmacological equivalent of heroin. And by early June, Jackson was struggling with the rehearsals for his This Is It tour.
Demerol is an incredibly powerful drug. So if you were to turn up at rehearsals on it, the reality is you'd be disorientated, you'd be dizzy, you'd also struggle with your breath. It creates a shortness of breath. Now this is literally the opposite of what is required when you're performing.
But in just 19 days' time, Jackson was due to embark on his record-breaking 50-date residency in London.
Michael Jackson's mind was not ready. While publicly he was telling people, yes, I can do this, it was clear by the way he was not turning up to rehearsals, ignoring important production meetings. This man was not ready for the This Is It comeback.
The situation became so desperate that the tour's producer, Kenny Ortega, sent an impassioned email to the promoters.
My concern is he appeared quite weak and fatigued this evening. He had a terrible case of the chills, was trembling, rambling, and obsessing. Everything in me says he should be psychologically evaluated. Oh, I believe that he really wants this. It would shatter him, break his heart if we pulled the plug. He's terribly frightened. It's all confidence. It broke my heart. He was like a lost boy. There still may be a chance he can rise to the occasion if we get him the help he needs. Sincerely, Ken.
The promoters issued Jackson an ultimatum. Shape up or they would pull the plug. $400 million in debt. For Jackson, this was not an option.